Friday, the 12th of April. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Business Morning. We're live to you from Lagos, Nigeria's financial and economic powerhouse. This is the show here on Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Bosin Namofaye. Let's get to what's in the news and making a bit of headlines before we get to talk about the market, but all a bit linked somehow, aren't they? Nigeria's very naughty multi-billion dollars petrol subsidy problem here at home was one major focus on Thursday at the World Bank IMF 2019 spring meeting taking place in Washington, D.C. The International Monetary Fund Managing Director or Chief Executive underscores the reasons why Nigeria needs to exit this historic consumption subsidy, multi-trillion naira. However, the country's finance minister, Zainab Ahmed, says thank you to the IMF, but that Nigeria will exit this petrol subsidy program in phases or gradually and on a sustainable basis. The Honorable Minister of Finance made a major presentation on Nigeria's reforms being carried out in the oil and gas sector, in particular, how to reform the petrol subsidy program, one of the big stories at the World Bank IMF. We'll hear from the IMF, Christine Lagarde, a bit later on the program. But let's stick with the oil and gas industry, where the Honorable Minister of State for the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachiku, says a total of 226 bids had been received from companies seeking to participate and in the actions being carried out by his ministry to end Nigeria's gas flaring. The bids being received are for identified 178 flare points across Nigeria where gas being flared. Nigeria needs about $3.5 billion in investment inflows by third-party investors to meet the country's gas flaring commercialization program target set for next year, 2020. The Honorable Minister of State, Dr. Kachiku, says the Nigerian government, will work to grant open access to all pipelines and other essential and midstream infrastructure to these investors and bidders. Kachiku says Nigeria, however, will retain the current gas pricing framework for the domestic market for a very limited period of time until Nigeria has enough gas. According to Dr. Kachiku, says the policy objective is to move to market-led wholesale gas pricing without gas price regulation except where there are natural monopolies, end of quote. That was at a press briefing held in Abuja on Thursday. Now let's come back here to our market street, where EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, ETI, listed in Lagos, Accra, and Abidjan stock exchanges, has floated $450 million Eurobond to tee off Nigeria's Eurobond corporate market in the new year. The $450 million comes at a 5-year as a 5-year paper with a yield of 9.75%, according to Bloomberg data. That's the yield on that. EcoBank Transnational is looking to refinance some of its debt and other corporate obligations. And sticking with the debt market, Nigerian breweries listed on the stock exchange yesterday floated 15 billion naira, which is Series 2 of its 100 billion commercial paper program, which was floated on FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange about a year ago. The Series 2 paper comes as a 90-day and a 182-day. The CP of 90 days has a yield of 11.59%, and the 182-day been floated at 14.43%. The Series 2 papers, which opens yesterday, April 11th, will remain open until the 18th, next week, Thursday, through which the brewer is seeking to support its short-term funding needs within the economy. Those are some of the stories making the headlines. But let's take this straight to the marketplace, where Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, is standing by in our studios downtown Lagos inside the stock exchange. Temple Ashaju will be taking us through some of these, giving us some perspectives around the EcoBank Transnational and Nigerian breweries. But first, let's start with the market for you. We've got 2 days of positive readings for the Nigerian market. Yesterday, the stock market closed about 0.53% to the north, but the all-share index is still below the 30,000 psychological level, which we lost about a week ago. And the equity capitalization just creeping back to about 11 trillion naira. If you look at the activity level, that was about 224 million ordinary shares for 2 billion naira in 3,127 transactions. And as you expect, the banking sector, the industrial goods and insurance took the market to a second day of positive reading. Consumer goods came in a tad of the rest of the 5 major indices, and of course oil and gas finished flat. Let's throw this to Tempo now to give us more of these in details, as well as a few other markets that he covers for us on a daily basis. Tempo, good morning.
Good morning, Bosun.
Yes,
good morning,
take it from here.
Yes, thanks for that summary that you quickly gave there. Well, so yes, we actually added some 57.92 billion naira yesterday to the equity capitalization, which then returns to 11.02 trillion naira. That's quite of a positive development for us in the market here. Of course, the all-share index is still trending around the 29,000 psychological mark. But hopefully, with this kind of a revamp that we're beginning to see, it should be able to push us back into the levels that we were before. That's the 30,000 psychological line. I know that may be very difficult because over the past, so last week we actually lost over 500 billion naira. I mean, for you to regain that this week, it's going to be very, very difficult. But perhaps next week we've got some silver lining in sight. So basically, like Bosun said, volume yesterday was down 53% to 224 million. And of course, the value of transaction yesterday was 2.01 billion naira. That's against the 30-day average that the market regularly records. But that, of course, means some 30% decline yesterday. We got some transactions from Zenith Bank, which lost some beat yesterday, 0.73%, contributing massively to all of the volumes that we saw in the market yesterday. In terms of the contribution, some 45 million units of the shares traded off yesterday at the value of 928 million naira. So that's how we were able to arrive at that particular volume of transactions that we recorded on Thursday. Of course, we've got a positive market breadth, which explains what we said yesterday about the buy sentiment that we're seeing, especially in the banking names. 15 gainers yesterday is against 7 losers in the market. And of course, the insurance segment, talk about the gains we saw across NEM Insurance and Niger Insurance, Veritas Capital. All of that really contributed to the positive sentiment that we saw from investors basically yesterday. On the sectoral front, like Bosun also hinted earlier, our banking segment, of course, did us some good yesterday. The insurance and, of course, the industrial goods segment also did us good. On the banking side of things, the buy interest we saw in Fidelity Bank, which recorded the highest around the banking side of the markets by some 8.7%, really helped that sector to close at 1.19%. FBN Holdings is one company that a lot of investors had serious expectations on for some dividends, and that's a company that has a historical dividend payment record. So it was up yesterday, 6.12%. FCMB, Access Bank, UBA, Guarantee Trust Bank, all of these companies really recorded gains yesterday. So remain on the gain side of things. Industrial goods segment of the market helped by WAPCO yesterday, which gained 3.3% plus yesterday during midday trading. Actually also contributed to the gains we saw in the market. And then insurance goods segment of the markets, given the gains around NEM Insurance and Niger Insurance and a couple of other insurance firms, also helped yesterday, and we saw the indices at 1.92% yesterday. For the losing side, flour mills yesterday recorded a loss of 2.35%, and I think by way of volume was able to massively impact negatively on the consumer goods segment of the market, which closed some 0.06% down yesterday. Takes us down to the energy segment of the market, as well as the oil and gas indices, where we saw no movement across board, but for Etana PLC, that lost them 8.05% in its share price. But if you take a look at all other counters and the energy stocks, there things were really stagnant for the greater part of yesterday. There was basically no movement. I think O&O was about the only company that recorded most of its gain. Corn oil yesterday, however, notified the market of some kind of preparedness around its audited financial statements. I think it's more of some kind of a delay. But for the unlisted securities market, we saw a reversal from the gains that we saw in the preceding session. Closed down yesterday, so 0.39%, and we saw that the U.S. side closed at 726.02 points, while still hedging around the support level of 700 psychological line, with a market capitalization that closed at 521.6 billion naira. Volume of transactions there yesterday at 46.03 million, valued at some 37.30 million naira. We continue to see investments around CSCS, which is the Central Securities Trading, the CSCS, that's the Capital Market Depository, and of course Afriland. These are the two key companies that are paying out dividends. So there's a whole lot of investment and attraction around these two companies. You've got a bit of interest as well in Food Concept and the likes of NDEP, that's the Niger Delta Exploration Petroleum Company there, and a host of a few other companies there. But then deals on that side of the market yesterday was just 41 generally. For the debt side of the market, which we will be getting more details on later, of course, things were a bit bearish on the bond side of things. We saw average yields expanding 11 basis points to 14.36%, and of course, there was sell pressure at the short end of the curve. And for the treasury bill side of the market, the sentiment yesterday was mixed at that side. We saw average yields dipping by some 1 basis point. That's a bit of a marginal decline anyways, to 13.28%. And of course, we saw buy sentiment at the long end of the curve, where we saw a contraction of some 5 basis points, Bosun.
Okay, Tempo, this looks like a bit of a very big rap about the markets. But let's speak a little bit on the equity side. Wednesday and Thursday looks positive. Most likely, you think Friday is not likely to be significantly different from this trend that we saw since Wednesday, do you?
Well, we may see a bit of a window dressing around the markets today. So we should also, given the kind of buy sentiment we've been seeing since midweek or since Thursday, midweek and then Thursday, I think we should be able to close positive again. Then remember that last Friday we were positive. Upper Friday was also positive. So that's what actually informed my own analysis, that today might also be positive. And then we'll see the bears probably resuming again next week, or basically some kind of a profit staking. Because again, if you look at the trends that we saw yesterday in the market carefully, you realize that we saw a bit of buy interest on the banking names. And that's also given the fact that the prices were really low. For some of them, they had actually hit their resistance level. And of course, that's a reason for some investors to quickly come in, take position. So by next week, if by today, if that trend continues, by next week, Monday, you should then see a bit of profit staking there. However, the sell pressure that we have been seeing before now is still very much in the markets. But you know how investors often try to do some kind of wait and see strategy to see if prices go back up again. When they do their valuations and they realize that that will bring about some profits, then they could wipe off some of those profits again, Bosun.
Okay. Temple, let's look about Nigerian breweries. This 100 billion naira program of commercial paper. Now 15 billion out of that is being sliced off as Series 2. I'm sure you'll be looking at how the market will, or the equity side will react to this commercial paper offering by this brewing giant.
Yep, Bosun, correct. If you look at the share price of Nigerian breweries, which is here in the market here, at a point it fell to 57 naira per share. I mean, that became very, very worrisome to some speculative investors who had actually put down money bets that it wouldn't go below 80 naira, because historically, when the foreign portfolio investors get back into the market and move off the hot money in the system, you see that the lowest that you've ever find Nigerian breweries will usually be around 80-something naira, 90 naira, and then before you know it, it goes back up into 100 naira. So that was the expectation. Unfortunately, this time, given some activities around this particular company, it fell below 60 naira, but then yesterday it closed at 60 naira 20 kobo. So I think this whole idea of a commercial paper is such a good one. It's going to also help them to basically meet their working capital demands and some obligations that they need to meet. This is a company that has a good history in the market. Recently, we know that they put up a plant that is being powered by solar. And I mean, that is something that is basically going to help them reduce their funding costs. And the fact that this particular CP is to meet some of their short-term funding requirements, it is a plus to them at the end of the day. It should actually drive up their share prices because investors will know that, I mean, this particular company is putting funds in some areas where they maybe projects and all of that, and it's a company that has also over the years been clamoring for local content in terms of its brewing operations and all of that. So possibly these will help, of course, to also drive up some more demand on the shares here tradable in the market. However, if you are tired of investing in equities, I mean, this is also an option. There are AfroInvest, the company that is like the advisor here now, has said that this is going to be open for 1 week, from Thursday yesterday through to Thursday next week. So if you are tired of the risk level in the equity market, this is something for investors to actually invest in. We understand that the minimum subscription level is 5 million.
That's if you have deep pockets.
Yes, I agree. It's not for small
if you have deep pockets, commercial papers is not for
absolutely
it's not for small
minimum
boys.
of 5 million naira.
Exactly. So you need to be a millionaire.
No, not at all.
To do a CP.
Not at all.
It's not for retail folks. But again, for some folks to have 5 million naira hanging somewhere. If you have 15 or 20 million, you could just throw
absolutely.
You can just put 5 million of that into the CP, into the commercial paper. That's not commissioner of police, by the way. That's commercial paper. For folks who may think CP stands for commissioner of police. Exactly. No, that's commercial paper.
Exactly.
And then you get about 11.3, about 12%. Not so bad. Oh, that's the 182-day paper is about 14.4. That's huge. Okay, let's change gear a little bit, tempo.
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether this is correct or not, but there's folks are sniffing around. There are some petrol stations or gas stations aren't dispensing because there was this rumors, or what we call the word on the street, that is some scarcity, whatever. There's no official word yet from none of the government agencies, the NNPC, the DPR, whatever, about this. So I don't know if today is anything anyone is taking on board. It's Friday. I don't know where these rumors is just coming from, but it's becoming a bit of a discussion somewhere. Drove down to the office this morning to the studios and noticed a number of gas stations not dispensing at all. So I'm not too sure whether this is rumor or this is something we need to take a bit more seriously. But I think it will be good to watch the oil and gas, oil retailers on your market for today.
Sure, Bosun. I mean, perhaps it also informs the reason why the energy stocks yesterday were quite quiet, a bit quiet, because if you look at those numbers again, there was basically no movement. So it's something that we'll have to wait on the federal government to basically give an information on, to basically explain their own side of things. I know that the IMF has now said that it's high time Nigeria actually removed its fuel subsidy, and the federal government, in some reports that we've seen this morning, actually, So, I mean, we understand that the federal government agreed to that and says that, yes, it is something in the works and all of that. But perhaps in the immediate term, we need an information from the federal government to basically calm the nerves of a lot of the consumers, so we don't end up seeing panic buying, because this is actually another festive season. We're going to be having Easter. Easter is just around the corner.
Disclosure? Yeah, I panicked this morning, and I just did. I just did a full tank. I just filled the tank to the brim this morning. So I confess, I declare, I publicly declare, I panicked this morning on the way to the office. Thank you, everybody. I think that suffices. Tempo. So don't panic like me, as it were. But it's very interesting and curious, isn't it? When the first subsidy discussion was going on in Washington, maybe folks...
It is, actually.
Maybe folks believe that the hammer was going to come. But for the records, Tempo, and for everyone, the Nigeria's finance minister says subsidy removal will be gradual and on a sustainable basis. I think that comfort we can give to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world, millions of Nigerians, that there is no removal of no immediate.
But I think we need more of that comment.
Yes, thank you. Let's take that on board. Nobody should panic like me. 6:30, take a 2-minute break. But again, we're going to listen to Christine Lagarde after the break about what she says, all she said about Nigeria's first subsidy and why it is very important for us to take that advice.